Stephen Gethins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you can tell, there's a huge strength of feeling about this issue across the House of Commons. And that is right, because what happens here has a significant impact outside this place. And that is why SNP members will continue to make the case for our constituents in this place. Because this matters. Because we have a clear...
Show Scotland what you're like.
We have a clear and coherent position on these issues, unlike the two biggest parties in this place. We know that the customs union is important to trade, the single market to jobs, as the UK government's own analysis has demonstrated, the fundamental rights that we enjoy as European citizens and which are being debated today. These are critical, and they're critical to our constituents, and people deserve for their voices to be heard well outside of this place. I've heard from the other side. I'll give way to the honourable member in just a moment. I've heard from the other side how this is just procedural, how we should just roll over, how we shouldn't have a voice in this particular debate. Well, that's not what we're here for. And even if we just left it to the government, they're not even making much of a job of persuading their own MPs. And I'll give way to the honourable member for the South.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. We share friendship on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I welcome him back to the Chamber. People will be watching these proceedings and see that the Minister took over an hour to make the case for the Government, and we do have to be here to represent our constituents. But he will be as disappointed as I am that the Scottish National Party had 5 Prime Minister's questions today that incidentally went to the Government benches because they had walked out and weren't here to answer the Prime Minister.
I have huge respect for the Edinburgh of Edinburgh South.
Order, the House must calm down. I don't think the honourable gentleman would be entirely surprised that him rising to his feet occasioned an immediate response from colleagues. That said, the honourable gentleman is a grown-up and he can look after himself. But that said, the honourable gentleman must be heard. He must be heard. Mr. Gethins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I can respond to the member for Edinburgh South, maybe I should remind him that in 1987, Scottish Labour MPs marched out of this chamber because they didn't think the government was taking Scotland's interests seriously. It's remarkable. The government has not changed in its attitudes. The Labour Party certainly has. And that's why there's so many few, and I'll give way.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way, because what he will see, as I will see, as the people of Scotland will be observing right now, as representatives from Scotland being shouted down the minute they get to their feet to put the Scottish interest. And it is no surprise and no wonder that the people of Scotland find all these unedifying scenes appalling and repellent. And that is why we will continue to put the voice for Scotland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, on the matter at hand, and actually members might learn something from this, I'm going to teach the members a lesson on something. If you are proposing significant change, which is what is happening with the EU withdrawal bill, very significant change that affects everybody, and actually affects generations to come much more than it affects anybody in this chamber, have the courage and the confidence to campaign on more than a blank sheet of paper, which is what all the Leave campaigners did. Set out your arguments, say in a detailed white paper, get experts, maybe even some Nobel laureates, together to discuss key issues, maybe in a fiscal commission working group, then look at the challenges that you have and bring politicians and practitioners together, say for a sustainable growth commission. That, Mr. Speaker, is a sensible way of preparing. We're now in a situation because 2 years have passed since the EU referendum. And we still don't know what Leave looks like. We still can't get agreement out of the government benches. And I'm not going to blame the Prime Minister for all of this. And I'm going to say something kind about the Prime Minister very briefly. Regardless of the Prime Minister's failings, those who spent years arguing for Leave have had their entire political careers to prepare for this moment, and yet they did not lay the groundwork, which has led us into the mess that not just this place has been left in, the devolution settlement has been left in, but our economy has been left in by the government's own analysis. From the very start of the 2015 election, this has been an exercise for the Conservative Party, and I'll give way briefly to the member.
I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman. I just want to take him back to the question that his honourable friend, the member for North Perthshire, raised earlier about immigration. Can I just ask him to set out in the, perhaps it was in the Sustainable Growth Commission's report, why is it that when we have over 200,000 net migration coming to the United Kingdom, why is it that so few of them choose to make their homes in Scotland?
Immigration.
Lots of them, many, as my own constituency is rich in immigrants who make our community richer, not just financially, it's a better place to stay. And the hostile environment created by the government is an abomination that should shame us all. An absolute abomination. From the very start of this, from before the 2015 general election, this has been nothing but an exercise in Conservative Party management. And not, Mr. Speaker, a terribly successful one at that. Yet all of us must pay the price. Farmers do not know if they should plant their crop for next year. And indeed, NFU Scotland have called for the UK to remain in the customs union. Young people don't know if they'll have the same opportunities as we had, with uncertainty over programmes like Erasmus. Researchers don't know the kind of collaboration that they will be able to rely on that we all benefit from. Just this week, I opened a conference at the University of St Andrews, where Professor Stephen Gillespie, Dr Wilbur Sabiti and Dr Derek Sloan are at the forefront of the international fight against TB, which has helped using EU funding for that. Economically, we know this will be devastating. The Treasury have told us that. And the Scottish Government shows that every single Brexit scenario makes us worse off. The Fraser-Vander Institute have also reflected that Scotland is set to lose £8 billion over the rest of the decade. And before we get catcalls from the other side, Director Professor Graham Roy says the rest of the UK could be even harder hit. That's not something that we want to see or something that others want to see either. That means less cash for public services, made worse by this government's other policies on immigration, with 2,500 doctors refused visas in the first 5 months of this year. A hostile environment. That's why Lord Dubb's amendment, which has been debated today, on the rights of unaccompanied minors, on child refugees, the most vulnerable in society, is so important. Now, Scotland voted to remain, and we know that every Brexit scenario is damaging. That is why the Scottish Government proposed a compromise, the least worst option of staying in the single market and the customs union. Now, last night, we had 19 minutes to discuss devolution.
Disgrace.
And the biggest impact that this legislation will have on the devolution process since its establishment. That smacks of a lack of respect in this place. The general election in 2017 gave all of us in this place an opportunity. When UK voters were asked for their views on Brexit by the Prime Minister, they came back with a hung Parliament. And only the SNP and the DUP, to be fair, returned in a majority of the seats in which we stood. But there should be an opportunity to reach out. Some of the best policy achievements of the SNP came during a period of minority government in 2007 to 2011, where Scottish Government ministers were required to work constructively with other parties and required other parties to work constructively with government. No one got everything they wanted in that particular set of circumstances. I know the member for Gethins was in that Parliament. And that's something that we can all learn from. And I just heard chuntering from the benches about we lost. Actually, the SNP gained an unprecedented majority, having pursued that particular policy. And on Ireland, there's been a particular impact on Ireland, and here the government benches would do well to listen. Where the Good Friday Agreement has been undermined by members on the other side. And right now, we should be listening to Ireland. Mr. Speaker, the best friends anyone can have are honest, and we all rely on critical friends. And frankly, right now, the UK has no better friend than Ireland. No better friend. In fact, the UK has benefited from Ireland being a full member state of the EU, as it would if Scotland was a full member state. I've heard so much about how canny the Commission are, how you can't trust their negotiating position. No one is trying to pull the wool over Brexiteers' eyes. It is just that they have come up against the brick wall of hard reality, and that is clear 2 years old. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, all of this comes at a time when politics in this place, as demonstrated today, could not be poorer. Now, notwithstanding some fine individuals on the benches on both sides, who I respect, we have the most ineffective and incompetent government in living memory, only let off the hook because they are shadowed by the most ineffective opposition most of us will have known and hopefully will ever know. I say to Labour benches, we want you to be doing better. We rely on you to be doing better. But just at a time when we need an effective opposition and government, we have neither. Mr. Speaker, given the devastating impact that leaving the EU is having on jobs and the economy and those who have made the UK their home, the UK is on the cusp of becoming a failed state that does not represent its constituents and leaves this generation, the following generations, worse off than the ones that came for the first time ever. One way or another, there is a better way to do this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.